Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Earlier today, I did a video, and when I went to play it back, I had uploaded it. When I went to play it back, I realized there wasn't any sound associated with it. So I'm redoing the video, and I checked to make sure that the sound settings were right. I'm an amateur, you could say kind of like a jack of many trades. I'm an amateur, and the plan for world peace at this point in time is very, very small. There are people all over the world who know about the plan, but if I am an amateur, that's not a problem, because everybody's an amateur at lots of things. The first principle of the global renaissance is that everyone has to work within their own capacity, and I'm a channel, and that's what my gift is from God, is to be able to channel. I can communicate with anyone on the other side. But when it comes to doing things like video, this is just raw video that I'm doing, but then what happens is when people stand up and complain about it, then I have to hire people to come in. And it's like people see the plan for world peace as being so big that they don't think it's possible that they can just help to bring world peace by just doing what their capacity to do. So that's where we are right now, is until everybody's willing to do things, then everybody is kind of like functioning outside of their capacity for a little while. Okay, I am not saying that I'm an expert at doing videos at all. Like I said, this is raw video. But I wanted to tell you what I am an expert at. Okay, I am like I said, a channel, and I have received a lot of information about how to do things. And by putting everything together, that's where I am now, is putting everything together into a bigger picture and seeing how the plan for world peace can solve problems. Okay, the existing structure, I'm competing with the existing structure that goes along for a period of time, and then it collapses because it's not addressing the root cause of the problem, so it makes the problem worse. And the other competitor that we have for world peace is the people, let's say the authoritarian people who have gone down into the power games, and they believe that this is like Asia, like Putin and Xi Jinping, this is Asia's century to shine. Well, technically speaking, it isn't their century to shine. It just seems like that. So when they go along, they're going down into the power games, like waging war or causing problems with economic problems or whatever. And I'm not just saying them. Anyone who's trying to take away other people's rights, anybody who is interfering in other people's lives, waging war, genocide, things like that. Those are the people who basically are let's call them that authoritarian group, the people who've gone down. So now this is what is going up. So now, as we address this, that's where we are right now in the plan for world peace. We're kind of competing with these other two potential futures. And speaking about future, the prophecy that we got at the prayer circle is that with the new millennium, basically it's the beginning of the 1,000 years of peace. It's a prophesied 1,000 years of peace. So let's look at that today, since things are getting so dire for so many people. People are in such crisis right now. There's a way to handle that too, but I have to bring in those other people who are also functioning from their capacity. It's like people just don't want to work at jobs they don't want anymore. They're walking away from things, and there's a lot of fear associated with what's the economy going to do. Is there going to be food supply and things like that? Okay, so let's talk about world peace and the 1,000 years of peace. Where we are, when we're starting out on a journey, you have to know where you are and where you're going, and then how to get there. Okay, so that's where we are now. Where we are now is, like I said, people don't want to do jobs. They're Elon Musk just said that his employees have to show up. They can't just work from home. They have to actually come and make the effort to show up. Basically, where we are is, let's say the January 6th committee is looking through all these millions of documents and sorting things out and trying to set them into a structure, so to speak, so that they can make the connections. And I can understand that because I'm doing the same thing with a huge mountain of stuff and trying to figure out how it all fits in, coming up with plans and explaining things. I understand that. I'm doing that by myself, working through all the stuff. That's why it's taken me so long. The January 6th committee is addressing the last election, but there's new reporting out that there is evidence that there has been an attempt to overturn the future election, and what that is doing is we're right halfway. You could say almost halfway. We're in the midterms now, the primaries for the midterms, and now that's the halfway point, the midterms, and now what we have is the problems associated with our elections. Well, if we have problems with our elections, there have been, how do we solve this problem? Do we address it just a little bit at a time, or is there a better way to handle that? There's been attempts to amend the Constitution over the years to get rid of term limits and put in balanced budget, get rid of Citizens United. Then it's all these different things that people tried to get in to amend the Constitution, but basically they fail because nobody's willing to support that idea. There's a need for it, but there's no need to support it. So here we have problems with our elections. We have electoral college issues. Okay, that's one of the main things now is the electoral college, and how do we solve these now is we look at this 1,000 years of peace, and we look at if this is the beginning of a new cycle, then what we need to do is we need to take the steps to set up the cycle so that it's 1,000 years. We don't want to bring with us all the old chaotic things that are causing so much trouble. We can't, if the authoritarians get in, or if the people who are standing on principles, the existing structure that's not solving the problems because it doesn't address the root cause of the problem, then we're going down. Either way, the 1,000 years, it won't be 1,000 years of peace. So we want to create something that will work better, that addresses all these balanced budget, electoral college, Citizens United, and all of them at the same time, because now is the time to make the changes. Do we keep the electoral college? If it's something where it's not one person, one vote, on an international level, is that going to work in all the countries? One of my projects is aspects of my project is the advisory project. And my job will be to go into other countries to introduce on an individual basis, taking the government proposal that we have to that country and then helping them set up an electoral process where they can participate in the international government. In the United States, we have to do the same thing because there's going to be two presidents. There's going to be a national president and an international president. And they will stand back to back. They will not interfere in any. The international president will not deal with national issues, and the national president will not deal with international issues. There will be possibly different term limits. There will be different ways for funding it. How are we campaign financing? How are we going to deal with campaign financing? How about if we get rid of campaign financing, the electoral college, and dark money issues in there, and by having it like well, let's step back for a minute and think about this. The Republican Party has brought in people who are influencers. They don't know anything about government, but because it's okay, you can tell them things. And like Marjorie Taylor Greene, she hears things from people and then she kind of spouts them off without knowing what she's really talking about. It's kind of a letter of the law versus the intent of the law. She's talking about things, but she doesn't know what she's actually saying. She's spouting off talking points, and not necessarily from the Republican Party. Who knows where she gets her information from. The Tommy Tuberville and Herschel Walker are two very famous football people. One is the coach and one is a football player. Very famous people. They're influencers. They can do that, but they don't necessarily know what they're doing, what they're talking about. They sound good, but they're off. The message is off. So we have to, like I said, everybody has to function from their capacity. And the way to deal with that is by letting go of all those things, of campaign financing, term limits, and Citizens United, and things like that are causing problems, not just in the election process, but in dark money and things like that, where it's coming from different places. And then but to make it so that anybody can run for president, but it's based on solving problems. And then you don't have to have campaign finances. In Georgia, you have probably the most money thrown at those elections anywhere. And where is the money going? It's like hundreds of millions of dollars are being spent to protect the elections. But if we have it set up so that people run for office on a local level first, even the international president runs on a local level first, and then has a plan for what they're going to do, what they would take there. They already have their agenda set up, and then as they run, they come up with a plan. They address the root cause of the problem, and then that's what they're running on. Local schools can host, colleges can host debates on things, and the newspapers can solve the problems that way too, by just running stories about them and what they stand for. It doesn't cost any money to do that. They're doing a public service to do that. No money involved with elections. No dark money will be spent. And then if they go to the local level, then they can go to the statewide level. If they can go, and then they can go to a regional level. If a tournament, if you take Tommy Tuberville and Herschel Walker and you put them together, how did they get to be, let's say, I'm mixing levels here, how did they get to the Olympics? How do you get to the Olympics? You go for on that level. The sports people know about tournaments and about like the World Series, about the Super Bowl. It's all done that way. If people want to make money on it, how are people going to gamble on it and do point spreads and everything like that? Do contests for that. And then whatever comes from that is their business. That's not mine. What we have, though, is a structure that will be fair, and you can get rid of the electoral college that way, because it's much more democratic, because it is coming from the people. It's not that people are going to audition for the role like with the Federalist Society, that kind of thing. So now the idea of where we're going, I'm going to tell you that in one of the things, and in the title that I made of my previous video was talking about the last pope and the last president. Okay, Saint Malachi was a, I think it was the 1300s, right between 13 and 1400s he lived. He was a seer, a prophet, a seer. He could see visions, and he had visions of all the popes from that time period to the last pope of the Catholic Church. And people are wondering how that played out. Okay, so all the cycles came, spiritual cycles always move in cycles, like years, you could say, millennia, they move in cycles, and things, astrologically speaking, work that way too. And the precession of the planets, we're dealing with a 1,000-year cycle, a yearly cycle, minutes, hours, all these things are basically replayed over and over again. The St. Malachi's prophecies were from the 1300s, you could say, to the last pope, which was they call him the in extremis pope. When there was a question about what happened, because Pope John Paul II was the sun, let's say the sun pope. He was born during an eclipse, and he actually I think he died during an eclipse too, that time period. Then what happened was then they thought Benedict, many people thought Benedict XVI was the olive pope, but they never figured out how he could do that. How did that fit in? Then the last pope would have been Pope Francis. But what happened was, after John Paul II died, there's always two popes at the beginning of a cycle and the end of the cycle. So Peter and Jesus were at the beginning of the cycle, 2,000-year cycle, and then it ended with Benedict the 16th, and Pope Francis is the first pope of the new cycle. So there were two popes. At the olive pope was named by God, not the church, not the College of Cardinals. It was there. So now what we have is the end one is the in extremis pope. That was Benedict, and he resigned. If you remember, he resigned, and he had all these problems. Well, in a way, it was like Trump was kind of like the in extremis president. He was the last president of the old cycle, and Francis is now setting into place all of these changes associated with the Catholic Church for the next 2,000 years. Okay, he's working with the idea of bringing in all the different religions and coming together and doing that. Now, that's his business, but you can read about that and you can study him separately. But Donald Trump, you could say, was our in extremis president, and he got in as a power grab, just like Joseph Ratzinger did. He was not doing the job the way he was supposed to do it. He was like functioning outside of his capacity, and that is what caused all these problems. He was, let's say, duly elected, duly chosen for the job, but it was more of a power grab than it was for functioning from his own capacity. Now Francis is setting this out, but Joe Biden, you could say, is the first president of a new cycle, and basically the plan, all of this happened because let's say God stepped in and created a new structure at that point of time. In 2017, I wrote my letter to the Supreme Court, and that was to protect the unalienable rights of the people. But then there's been this backlash, this extreme backlash from it. It's the same thing that's happening in the Catholic Church. Okay, so let's say God stepped in the U.S. government too, because I channeled that letter to the Supreme Court. And then when I sent it off, it was there and introducing universal law into that idea. So we're ready now. You could say the Catholic Church is making changes, bringing in all the religions with the faith of the pure, and we have this in the U.S. government is the overview. The United States is like the overview idea, a rainbow idea, the overview idea of all the countries, because we're a melting pot of all the countries. We're made up of people from every culture and every religion, and there's unity in diversity. Okay, so that is the plan for the international government. When we start this idea about setting up for the elections, we're setting up into the place that the structure that will lead to 1,000 years of peace. And in the Catholic Church, it sounds like it's going to be 2,000 years. The power games will come back. The power games are ending now. We're going to be working on that, and then in 1,000 years they'll come back for a period of time, but then it's going to just keep on going. We'll let whoever's alive then handle the situation. Okay, so that's all I wanted to really talk about. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe. If you are concerned about the present and all the things that are happening now, so many people are in crisis. The shootings that are going on is because people feel they can't get their life. That's where we are. That's where my group is going to be working with the crisis centers and helping people if they're in crisis. If they're worried, then we're going to help with that. We can introduce these solutions that absolutely make sense, that solve problems. So look ahead for this 1,000 years of peace to come, and join the debate. Like, share, and subscribe, and join the debate. And then basically what we'll do is we'll all work together to make this happen. My amateur quality of everything, my books are amateur quality books. I have to bring in the professional publishing team. I need to bring in somebody who can help me with my videos. And I know the young people now, my grandchildren are love to do videos and do things like that. So I'm hoping that everybody will come from their own little area of expertise. I would like to be able to step back from doing all these things that are, let's say, outside of my capacity, where I look really absolutely stupid doing them, and then go back to doing the things that I do best, just like everybody should. If Herschel Walker and Tommy Tuberville are elected into the Senate again, and they're there, they just will, if they can defend the rights of the people and do their job, anybody can run for president, and that's basically what we're holding on to. But let's choose people who can solve problems. And that's one of the things that one of our projects is, I have, when we're going to do the tent tour, we're going to have a project where we work with a local government, and then we're going to bring together the people in the community who are willing to make the changes and do the things, and then we're going to work with them on how to solve problems based on the planning process and the root cause cards. I channeled a group of root cause cards, just one thing, and basically they give the root cause of all of the like 20 of the major issues that are affecting people, even how to overcome death, okay, how to stop hurricanes, how to deal with financial collapse, okay, how to deal with cancer, all these issues. And then as we introduce these root cause cards, then we can work with these within communities and start to address issues. So if you are the kind of person who would like to run for president at any point in time, I recommend that you, if our tent tour comes, I recommend that you join the group. We're going to also be bringing in the local area channels in the area, and then we'll help to start up crisis centers in in each of the towns that we are in. We're not going to we're going to have a tour for the big cities too, 18 big cities and one prison. And then we're going to introduce information in that too on those levels. There's going to be a tour where the project level people have to come in and do the tour too. So we're setting it up, and we're going to be kind of jumping around the city, the country doing that. And if people come and they participate in this, I'll be really happy to see that. Okay. So that's all I wanted to say for today. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe, but most of all, share. Oh, one other thing I talked about in my last video was about a nuclear war situation. There's a possibility that Vladimir Putin has been sending his conscripts, his cheap stuff that he wants to get rid of into Ukraine, and then he's going to work with Cuba, and because there are a lot of Russians in Cuba, and I thought that since I'm responsible for the idea of Cuba, because Fidel Castro liked the plan for world peace, basically I need to introduce this plan for the international government. When the plan went out, it was originally when Obama accepted the plan, there were several, it was Ahmadinejad of Iran who stood up and talked to him. They opened up a dialogue. He's the one who has to tell you about what happened there. But then Fidel Castro stood up, and then Hugo Chavez stood up in Venezuela. Other people have stood up too, including, and then Jimmy Carter went into North Korea and talked about it, and they said they'll talk. So what we have now is people resisted the idea, but so by that resistance, Cuba got dragged into that too. There's a possibility of another Cuban Missile Crisis there. The United States, we cannot defend ourselves against the hypersonic missiles or the torpedoes. I live about 2 or 3 blocks from the ocean that way, and about maybe 6 or 7 blocks that way from the ocean. So the torpedoes with that can carry nuclear weapons and come up on the land and go about like 100 miles. They're the entire west coast and the east coast of the United States. We're vulnerable to that. So rather than dwell on that and worry about it, the best thing to do is to do something about it now, and that is like, share, and subscribe, and send this information out to all your family and friends, and open the debate on it, because if people don't stand up and start sharing this information with other people, then how is this information going to go out? Right now, we have members in 88 countries who like the plan. It's a trickle-up idea from the bottom. If you want to run for president, go right ahead. It's a trickle-up idea. If you can solve problems, you will have no problem. If you come up with viable plans for each level as you're going through the process, you'll be fine. But what we have to do is we have to get the word out and to share this information so that there is I'm not going to call it a grassroots movement, because that's a little bit different, because grassroots, you go from the roots and you go from the seeds. They spread grass and seeds. Right now we're just talking about an idea and opening it up for debate, and then when people join is when they join the grassroots movement. And we have economic plans that do that, and I'll talk about those economic plans in future videos. Okay, so now we have the 1,000 years of peace, so let's get sharing this information with other people. You don't have to be an expert on it. Just pass on my amateur quality videos and say, if there's a plan for world peace, if you can come up with a better one, we'll do that. Okay? So, like, share, and subscribe, but most of all share, because this is important. Okay? Thank you.